So have you guys covered the hiker rescue?
No, we've
I know
read
nothing.
about it, but
Do you
yeah.
know what I'm talking about?
You need to tell me about the hiker rescue because I don't watch Fox News regularly, so I guess I missed it.
This was drama in Manchester, Essex, and Hamilton on Tuesday. So it was Tuesday afternoon, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Two hikers, a couple from Marblehead. They were in their 60s. They are in their 60s because they have happily survived and emerged from the woods unscathed. But they put in a 911 call just before 2 o'clock, saying that they were disoriented and they were lost in the Manchester Essex woods, deep into the Manchester Essex woods. The press release that came out, and there was a press release that came out, which is such an odd thing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, who put that out?
I can't get used to the fact as a news person, and it doesn't matter if I'm at a weekly, I can't get used to a press release coming from a police department. Can you?
No, that's strange.
Usually they're the ones saying, no, 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 it's all secret. Instead, they're like, we found a dead body in Gloucester. Press release. That literally came out yesterday. But anyway, this is about two hikers, and this was the press release. Stuck in a swamp. Stuck in a swamp. Stuck.
Oh.
So what did you, I mean, if you saw that press release, what would you figure? You would imagine couples up to their thighs in black mud going, help, help, I can't get out. I'm stuck in a swamp. Okay.
Right. I know where I am. I'm just stuck.
Okay. So here's what happened. Two hikers out on a spring, lovely, this beautiful weather that we've been having. That's danger number one, by the way. Apparently with outdoor enthusiasts, it's very, very common that you get this spring buoyancy and this spring enthusiasm to go out and hike, and then they get into trouble. And that particularly happens up in the White Mountains. But here we are in the Manchester Essex woods, and there were some hikers who went out. What people don't realize is that the Manchester Essex woods, miles and miles and miles of trails. And those trails can get disorienting at times. And that's exactly what happened with this couple. No, they were not stuck in a swamp. They became disoriented when they hit a swamp area. So it was like off of Cedar Swamp in the Manchester Essex woods. It was deep in, obviously. They were miles and miles in, which is what Paul Francis, the chief of police in Essex, told me. And they did exactly the right thing. They did not go in the swamp. They just went back and forth. Nothing looked familiar. So they called 911. The 911 call, and this is kind of interesting. 911 call went to Manchester. Manchester tossed it over to Essex because they were technically in Essex. So that happens all the time. Manchester and Essex works really well together. I think I've told you that Todd Fitzgerald, the chief of police, used to work with Paul Francis. Now they're both chiefs of police next door to each other, and both departments are certified by the state in a very specific way. So they work well together. So here's what's interesting. The call went to the dispatch center, the Essex County Dispatch Center in Middleton. Essex belongs to that regionalized dispatch program. And I don't know if you followed this, but that's a little bit of a controversy in Manchester because they're considering doing it. And there are people who are against it and there are people who are for it. Well, we got to see the Essex Regional Dispatch on display because helicopters were called in. They had this pinging GPS technology that they were able to actually monitor and watch with the police from Essex, Hamilton, and Manchester, all of whom went on the hunt for this couple. And they got found at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it took all of 2 hours with helicopters, a drone, and an ATV vehicle. So a lot of resources put on it. Exactly. But what it ended up finding them was that they were able to GPS the phones of the callers, the couple, and all the police. And in the end, it was Lieutenant Mark McCoy from Manchester and then Sergeant Dan Bruce from Essex. I spoke with Dan Bruce, and he was very, oh, it took a team. He was, very modest, exactly. But they found him. They were very relieved to be found, the couple. They felt a little foolish, but here's the truth. The truth is they could have gotten into a lot of trouble, actually. And this technology made it look easy to find them. They were deep into the woods, Paul told me, and it could have been bad. And it wasn't at all. So there you go. That's the drama. It was on Channel 25. It was like everywhere. You get a helicopter, there you go.
Yeah.
All the news comes out.
I would have thought, particularly in daylight, that you could turn the GPS on your own personal phone and sort of get a sense of where to go. But apparently that didn't work.
Well, there's also All Trails, which is like
Yeah,
a app, which
right.
I know a lot of my friends use and I just downloaded, and you
Yeah,
should
I
be
use
able
it.
to do the things like
Right.
that. Yeah. So you're right, but maybe they didn't have it. I mean, they were in their 60s, and which is kind of a cuspy generation that may
Yeah.
not be using, fluent with apps and things like that.
Or maybe they were hiker purists or something.
Oh.
But I have I have found that app to be really helpful. So
Well, they did the right thing. They stayed put, because apparently once you call, the best thing to do is don't move. Don't move. Don't go anywhere. Don't try to fix anything.
yeah,
But
right.
they did it, and it had a happy ending, but it was really interesting. And I thought it was really interesting, the whole angle of the regional dispatch.
Very
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So there
Well,
you go.
cheers to everyone involved. All right, Erika, let's talk about Great Marsh photography.
Oh yeah. Dorothy Kerper Monley. I mean, this last edition is the 26th. It's the last edition in the month of March, and that is, of course, Women in History Month. So we have two great stories in this edition, and one of them is Dorothy Kerper Monley is a photographer. She's a fine art photographer, which means she uses large film, large format cameras. Think Ansel Adams. And she has taken photos, images, and captured the most incredible images of the Great Marsh, her backyard of the Great Marsh in Ipswich for 50 plus years. And she got into it because she would send her kids off to school, and she lives kind of on the way to Cranes Beach, and the kids would go off to school, and she literally had this singular kind of focus on photography. She was influenced by her father, who also was a fine art photographer, using a large format film, and she has become quite acknowledged, quite good. She's shown regularly. Ansel Adams himself was a fan and wrote, a blurb in her for some of her work. She's beautiful, and the pictures are unbelievable. They're just gorgeous. So we thought we'd celebrate her.
Very cool.
The second woman, though, Corey, I need to bring you in.
Is there another Pulitzer
second
on the way?
extraordinary woman is
Let's
Abigail Hooper Trask.
Yeah.
Yeah. My father for 25 years we'd write letters. Letters were something you actually wrote on paper and actually put in the post and sent. And before email, he used to send me clippings from newspapers and magazines, mostly the New York Times. And he'd only put a little note off the top of it. Another extraordinary woman. Another extraordinary woman. And that's what I was thinking when I thought of Abigail Hooper Trask. Yeah. Corey, another extraordinary woman.
It was great to research and learn all about her. And I'm happy the readers get to check out what she's all about, or to see the little mini doc we did for 1623. It was great. Beth Wellen let me into do a deep dive into the archives there. So I was looking at her original handwriting and receipts and ledgers, and it was really cool. And, I can't emphasize enough how much of a revolutionary this woman was. I mean, when we say she was acting as an attorney and being a private banker and managing a business decades before anyone else, like literally decades and decades before women could do any of those things legally, she was doing it.
The first prenuptial agreement.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's extraordinary. She, as I love the headline that you wrote. I pride myself on my headlines, Corey, and you said Manchester's boss lady. And that's exactly what you said. And she was a boss lady. She lived in the 18th century and the 19th century in Manchester. Robert Booth, who is a historian, a very well-known historian around here, he believes that she is one of the first example of a female business owner, not a small business, but a real thriving, big sole business that she started and she founded and grew, as opposed to inheriting your husband's business when he dies kind of thing.
Right.
She was a retailer. She had a dry goods store. She was so successful at this, and that it was open even on the Sabbath, as Corey, I did not know that about her. Mm-hmm. She had a store. That store became successful on her own money. She built a wonderful house downtown, now the Trask House, which is the museum. And she became, you're right, a banker, a private banker, and that was where she made a lot of her money. And she also was tapped really into the town in such an intimate way that only a woman can be tapped in. She knew every sailing ship because men were gone often for months and months at a time. Women were left alone. She took care of those families. She was banking and financing those families often. And if a sailor and a captain went missing and was dead, she would waive their deaths.
Yeah, amazing.
Isn't that
woman.
nice?
Yeah,
and then she would take care of all of their legal things. As you said, she acted as their attorney. So she really was an extraordinary woman. When she died at 96 years old, she was not only the oldest woman in Manchester, she was also its most accomplished citizen, man or woman even. And she married, she was kind of a power couple, half of a power couple, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was working on the story. You didn't want to have her overshadowed by Captain Richard Tink or Trask because he was a behemoth in the industry. Like he had the largest ship that was ever built in Massachusetts at that time. And he was a name, a foreign trade shipmaster.
Didn't you write, and I did not know this, Corey, didn't you write that when he died, he was widely recognized. His death was widely recognized.
Yeah, Boston Harbor, all sails were at half mast.
Exactly. I didn't know whether it was Boston or Salem.
Yeah.
She, even as strong as he was, she convinced him to change his name.
Yeah.
Right? Speaking of names, because she didn't like his name.
Yeah, that in and of itself is pretty impressive.
Well, the accomplishment, of course, is, as you said, Heather, he did it.
Yeah, right.
Not that she asked, that she
She sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. And then also that she did, and it wasn't really a prenuptial agreement, but when they got married, she said, this is mine. And he was a widower with 3 children. So really, if they had married by the laws of that time, she was considered chattel. She was considered property. And what that meant is everything that she amassed, if he died or if she died, would go to his children. And well, first of all, it would go to him and then go to his children if he died. That was the issue. And so she convinced him to sign a legal document that said, what I bring to the marriage is mine and I get to keep it even if you die. God forbid.
Yeah, it's amazing that it was legal, that she was able to do that. But
Well,
she
she
was
knew how
able
to do it.
Yeah.
And they had a child. They had one son, Charles, and he ended up living, as you said, Corey, at the ripe old age of 85. And he was a very successful
81.
investment banker, right, in New York.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And Erika, I was telling Erika off camera another time that her nickname was Nabby. And I think the Manchester Essex Regional High School Hornets should rename themselves the Nabbies.
Totally agree.
It makes sense. Nice homage to the boss lady.
The Nabbies. There we go. We'll start the campaign now. The Nabbies. Go Nabbies.
Thank you, Erika.
All righty. Thanks, guys.
Bye.